What you are seeing right now on your screens is the highly anticipated live fire exercises of Balikatan between the AFP and the U.S. Armed Forces. It finally happened today with no less than both forces sinking a ship. Yes, a real ship. That is the decommissioned vessel BRP Pangasinan, a Philippine Navy ship, a World War II era corvette. But what exactly can we expect after these Balikatan exercises, and why the sudden shift from a land warfare scenario to a naval one? And who was their pretend enemy? We'll get into that later.
Our next story also has something to do with water, but this time around, it's our water supply. Do you always get your car washed or take a dip in a pool to beat the summer heat? Well, you may have to limit these activities, at least for now. Why? Because the MWSS says that we should. We have MWSS Deputy Administrator Jose Dorado to give us the answers later on in the program.
From license cards to license plates, the Land Transportation Office now sees a possible shortage in both. Motorcycle and vehicle owners could have a hard time getting license plates by the third quarter. Just like last time, the LTO says it's waiting for the go-ahead from the DOTR over procurement. But what can motorists do until then?
Welcome to the show. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Chicky Verhel.
And I'm Sean Yap.
We have quite a number of stories to talk about today, girls, Gretchen, Sean, and we begin with a joint literal live fire exercise in Zambales. In case you're wondering what literal means, girls, and for those who are watching, it's the area or part of the sea or ocean that's near the shore. So why is this significant?
Literal, as in L-I-T-T-O-R-A-L.
Hindi literal.
Yeah.
We don't
Double T.
we don't hear about that word a lot, but we have to remember it right now because it is a new tactic for this year's Balikatan as Philippine and U.S. soldiers focus their drill on sea warfare this time.
All right, so now the question here is, ladies, is there something more to these drills, which no less than the president took the time out to watch? Gio Robles was there and he has this report.
In what seems to be a rare move from President Bongbong Marcos, the chief executive attended the culminating activity of the biggest Balikatan between the U.S. and the Philippines. This is the first time Marcos witnessed the live fire drill since military exercises kicked off over 2 weeks ago, and a few days before his scheduled 6-day working visit to Washington, D.C. on Sunday. This year's Balikatan is marked with many firsts. The highlight was the exercise, which aimed to sink the Navy's decommissioned BRP Pangasinan. Equipped with state-of-the-art aerial and naval assets, over 1,000 Filipino and American soldiers joined forces during the simulation. The AFP stressed that the exercise will enhance the interoperability of American and Filipino forces in conducting combined joint operations in maritime and territorial defense. Marcos was not able to meet the press, but speaking to local and foreign media, Balikatan spokesperson Colonel Michael Lohico said that the president lauded the combined joint drills.
The president watched the exercise and he understands the challenges that is entailed in doing a combined operation at this level. And from that, the appreciation of the president is what we came out with.
In the same interview, the United States emphasized yet again that Balikatan is not directed at China amid growing dispute at the West Philippine Sea and Taiwan Strait.
We've been called upon to train together, and we learn from that. That key element of partnership and resolve is far stronger than any other measure of technical prowess, any other measure of exploding targets, or any other measure of offensive and defensive capability. In translation, shoulder to shoulder, that doesn't mean weapon to weapon, it really means family.
On the other hand, when asked whether the country will procure all modern weapon, equipment, and assets used in this year's Balikatan with the U.S., Lohico had this to say.
I am not involved in AFP modernization. I am just involved in the exercise, so I cannot speak for what goes on in the modernization planning. What we actually demonstrated was the capabilities of the HIMARS and probably also its limitations to give our senior leaders a more informed decision on modernization.
And amid all that action, we heard reports of an aerial intruder in one of the drills during the Balikatan exercises. Is this true? Gio Robles is back to tell us more.
Sean, that's right. An aerial interloper ventured into the airspace of San Antonio town during the bilateral war games between the U.S. and the Philippines. The intruder, detected by radar, delayed the operation between the two countries where they practiced sinking a mock target. This was 235 kilometers away from Scarborough Shoal. That's according to Balikatan spokesperson Michael Lohico. Now, Sean, let me just tell you what Lohico said earlier, that they have yet to verify the identity of the intruder, as it will be up to the sensors to verify that. Now, Sean, the Balikatan exercise, meantime, will wrap up on Friday, April 28th. Back to you, Sean, and good evening.
Thank you and good evening. Gio Robles of News 5.
Let's get more insights on the Balikatan live fire exercises with One News Defense Editor Manny Mogato. Good evening and welcome to the big story.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Okay, first of all, let's pick up from that story of Gio. It reminds
so scary.
me. It reminds me of the balloon in the United States. Diba? I mean, like, do you have any insight, inside information on that?
It's possible that some nations might be monitoring what's happening in Zambales during the live fire exercise, and it could be some kind of a drone. We don't know because they said it's unidentified. Anyway, those are very usual because before.
You mean normal lang na magyari ng gano'n? Na habang nagla-live
Well,
fire
because-
drills, biglang may parang zoom.
Yeah,
Sa Ukraine, diba? Drone warfare na doon.
Yeah.
Anyway, because before, when there was an exercise in Palawan, there was a reported Chinese ship that went into the Philippine Sea. Maybe to monitor, to see what's happening there. Sinisilip nila, what's happening there? No? So it's possible that maybe they are also looking into what are they doing there. Because that area is very near Scarborough Shoal. Anyway, the vessel that was supposed to be destroyed by the HIMARS is about 4.7 nautical miles from the shore. So it's within the Philippine area, Philippine territorial waters, because under international law, we have territorial waters up to 12 miles. So it's 4.7, so
Pasok na pasok.
pasok na pasok. Atin talaga yun. Oh. So they have no business poking their nose or
Talaga ba, Sir Manny? Kasi
Dapat.
dapat, di ba? Dapat they have no business poking their nose, but they're all-encompassing 9- claim, like, pasok din yung 4.7 nautical miles natin, hindi ba? According
hindi
to
naman,
them.
kasi
According
territorial
to them,
water.
yes.
Territorial water. And I heard you were talking about littoral.
Oo, correct. Ano ba yun? Gano'ng kahalaga yun?
It's simple lang yun, coastal.
Ayun.
Okay.
Pag sinabing coastal, sin talagang nasa shore talaga.
Atin yun, kaya coastal.
okay.
Coastal
Okay.
defense. Actually, yung littoral is coastal defense. No? Because yung several weeks ago in Washington, there was a meeting between the Defense and Foreign Affairs official, si Secretary Manalo and Secretary Galvez met with Secretary Austin and Secretary Blinken. And one of the promises given by Secretary Austin was to provide the Philippines some shore-to-ship missiles. Yan. Kasi wala pa tayo niyan eh.
Yun nga. Isa pa yung wala pa tayo nun before. Dati, hindi naman tayo gumagastos, di ba, para magpalubog ng barko. Kahit na decommissioned na yung barko. Also, all this naval warfare training, it's also rather new. What gives?
Well, this is a very significant development because in the past, all our exercises with the Americans were humanitarian assistance, counterterrorism, only the amphibious landing exercise, yung territorial. No? But this time, they were allowing us to handle Javelin anti-tank missiles. No?
Mukhang
They were showing us
nag-intensify.
Patriot missiles. And then they have these HIMARS. I hope that the U.S. will give us several of these HIMARS because they gave it to Ukraine.
Wala ba sa usapan yun?
Wala.
So walang
Baka.
dokumento.
Wala pa.
Wala pa
Wala pa.
detalye.
Because yung isang HIMARS is costing about $4 million. Eh, mura lang naman eh. Baka bigyan sa atin.
Pero paano yan? Kasi nag-intensify na yung mga exercise, mga cooperation natin with the US. What implication does this have, like on a global scale? What impression does this give other countries, especially China?
It's showing that we are shifting from a counterinsurgency to a territorial defense for armed forces because the NPA has declined. No? So it's about time that the Philippine military should train to defend our territory, our sovereignty. So with the U.S. assistance, we're hoping that we get some brand new weapons, sophisticated weapons, no? Not only HIMARS, but all the missiles that they're
The Avenger,
showing
the
us.
Patriot.
Is it the first time that we've sunk a ship in
This is
the
the first
Balikatan
time.
exercises?
Yeah, because before, puro tayo counterinsurgency. So, talagang
puro
this is the first time.
land-based.
But doesn't this heighten the tensions between, with Taiwan, with China?
It might because China is very worried when we allowed the United States access to some bases in the north, which is facing Taiwan. No? So with this kind of exercises involving territorial defense, well, the Chinese might be very worried more.
But they also might see it as a provocation, which is yun yung tinatry natin i-avoid, di ba? But at the same time, gusto rin nating magpaangas. Alam mo yun, it's a delicate balance, Sir Manny. So,
Kailangan naman no? Kasi in the region, Southeast Asian region, tayo yung kulerat No? We don't have fighters, we don't have missiles, we don't have submarines, we don't have naval vessels to patrol our territory. It's only this time that we're buying ships, aircraft, but we need more money.
Well, the way I see it now is like the Philippines is dancing between two suitors. And we have to assert our value somehow with the U.S. Investing more in the Philippines, getting more out of the deal. Now China is claiming na parang it's not just the territorial disputes that we have to look at. We also have economic ties. We also have, parang the Chinese-Philippines relationship is more than what is happening in the West Philippine Sea. They're now changing their tone a bit with the foreign minister coming here.
Yes, that's right. So it's a very delicate balancing act for President Marcos. No? On one side, the Americans for security, and on the other side, the Chinese for their economic support.
how would you grade President Marcos on how he's been doing this balancing act? Let's say from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 of course being the highest.
Well, it's difficult to say how Marcos is balancing it, but I would give him 7 to 8.
7 to 8, why?
Because
Saan yung yung 2 to 3?
Kasi
Magandang tanong yan.
yung 2 to 3, hindi pa kumpleto
We're just seeing
Pero
it.
pasado,
Seeing it
pasado.
unfold.
So far, di ba?
Yes.
A lot of people who are...
Compared to the past administration,
Oh, okay. Okay, in relation pa.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Because in the past administration, masyadong leaning towards the Chinese. No? So now, the perception is leaning towards the Americans, but it's not. It's a balanced diplomacy.
Well, certainly a big day now for the U.S. Armed Forces and the Philippine Armed Forces. And one thing that we're going to watch out for is the response of the Chinese government. Let's watch out for that. In the meantime, thank you very much, One News Defense Editor Manny Mogato, for visiting us here on the set.
Thank you.
Up next, the MWSS wants LGUs to issue ordinances against the activities that waste water. We'll be speaking with Jose Dorado Jr., Deputy Administrator for Engineering and Technical Operations Group of the MWSS, regarding that and the country's water supply when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still tuned in to the big story.
More and more public school students are making frequent trips to the school clinic as the summer heat takes its toll on learners. Just this week, a grade 9 student at the Cordova National High School in Cebu passed out and had to be rushed to the hospital. Students fainting in class due to heat exhaustion have also been in the news these past weeks. Remember what happened at the Abellana National High School? 10 to 15 students were sent to the school clinic for dehydration.
Sa kasalukuyan ay nagkakaroon kami ng problema kasi yung mga estudyante namin, maraming mga nahihirapang huminga, sumisikip ang dibdib, may mga sumasakit yung ulo na nadadala dito sa opisina, ang iba nadadala namin sa aming school clinic po.
With more and more schools reporting fainting spells among students, so is a call to revert to the old school calendar. The Department of Education, however, said this will take time. But for now, schools are being given the discretion to decide whether to implement blended learning in days when it's just too hot to be in school.
Our schools actually are also has the discretion if mainit talaga sa lugar nila na mag-EDM, yung alternative delivery mode, no? So we have different modalities. We can have the modular printed or online or TV-based instruction or possibly radio-based instruction na gagamitin.
With the threat of El Nino, the MWSS is now urging LGUs to pass ordinances that limit or suspend water consumption from car wash establishments to swimming pools. The agency says around 2,000 households will benefit from limiting or suspending the consumption of all 1,000 car wash establishments serviced by Maynilad and Manila Water. This number will double if water consumption of recreational establishments like swimming pools and golf courses are also reduced. The MWSS clarifies, though, that they are not eyeing to stop the operations of these businesses, noting that the measure can be implemented only during emergencies or peak hours. The Metro Manila Council has yet to respond to this proposal.
To tell us more about this plan, we have with us via Zoom MWSS Deputy Administrator for Engineering and Technical Operations, Jose Dorado Jr. Sir Jose, welcome to the big story. Sir, we do know that you have clarified and made very clear that it's only for emergencies, but it's also a bit unfair, don't you think, for establishments that had to close down during the pandemic? How is everyone taking this news or this suggestion? For example, the Metro Manila Council.
Magandang gabi po sa mga host natin, no. I mentioned that this is one of the solutions of addressing the water shortage during these times of emergency water crisis. Ano po? We have these policies na dapat po idulog po sa mga LGUs natin. Dapat po matingnan natin kung ano po yung mga madaling paraan po para po makapagpatipid ng tubig po sa ating mga consumers. So marami po tayong conservation measures, but this is the most easiest way of how to conserve water po. Ito mga car wash, ito mga golf courses, and also these swimming pools. Hindi naman po obligado silang itigil yung operation basta't po pagdating po nung panahon po nung water crisis o kaya yung mga high peak demand, i-notify po natin to yung mga users natin na kung pwede po i-suspend lang muna o i-restrict po nila yung paggamit po ng tubig para po may distribute po natin sa mga household po natin ma'am.
We're speaking about shortage, and so it brings me to like the thought of allocation. I remember I think it was last week, that the MWSS was supposed to send a letter to the NWRB or the National Water Resources Board to ask for additional allocation. Ano pong nangyari, sir?
Yes, ma'am. The NWRB granted the additional 2 cubic meters per second para po mabawasan po natin yung mga water interruption po ng Maynilad side. Ito po yung sa west service area ng MWSS. And actually now, Maynilad already addressed this problem. Wala na po tayong interruption na nangyayari po dun sa tubig na nanggagaling po sa Angat. Mabanggit ko lang, ma'am, kasi ang source po ng Maynilad is, there are 2 sources. One comes from Angat Dam and the other source comes from Laguna Lake. medyo po nagkakaproblema yung Laguna Lake natin doon sa water quality, kaya po nagkakaroon po ng mga panandaliang interruption po doon sa area ng south. In any case, ma'am, the two CMS also already satisfied the requirement of Maynilad for the service area within Metro Manila and Cavite po at saka Rizal po, ma'am.
Sir, with your recent announcements, for sure, managers of car wash establishments, also swimming pool, resort owners, they are unhappy about this, feeling like they're being zeroed in on. Would you say meron po bang a way to meet in the middle? For example, lessen inflatable pools instead of like trying to ban that all out? Kahit po sinasabi po natin na emergency, kahit pa paano, where can we meet? Given kabuhayan po ito pinag-uusapan po natin.
Ma'am, tulad na banggit ko, restriction lang po ang gagawin natin. And at this point in time po, we are not experiencing this shortage of water dahil po sufficient po yung elevation ng Angat Dam natin ngayon. Nasa 196 po tayo. Ang operation level po ng Angat natin is nasa 180. So yung ina-advise lang po ng MWSS sa tulong po ng LGU na maglabas po ng mga ordinansa na in case of nasa crisis mode na po tayo, at least andun na po yung ordinance natin na pwedeng ipatupad po at anytime po na bumaba po yung elevation ng Angat natin para sa supply po ng Metro Manila consumers po natin, ma'am.
Alright, maraming salamat sa paglilinaw and thank you for joining us tonight, MWSS Deputy Administrator Jose Dorado Jr. Salamat, sir.
Is U.S. President Joe Biden too old to run for re-election? That is the question in Americans' minds after the 80-year-old leader announced that he will seek a second White House term in 2024. In his first public speech after launching his 2024 candidacy, Biden told union workers that there's a lot more work to do in leading America and he wants to finish the job. However, Biden is facing growing questions, even among Democrats, about whether his age will limit his ability to campaign and to handle the rigors of the White House in a potential second term. A Reuters poll showed that 44% of Democrats believe he is too old to run, but it's not just him. 76-year-old Trump is also facing concerns about his age, with 35% of Republicans saying he is also too old. The poll also showed that a majority of registered voters don't want either Biden or Trump to run again.
Is Biden too old? That's a bit difficult to answer, girls. But speaking of difficult questions, there were a lot of those today thrown to policemen involved in the seizure of almost 8,000 kilos of shabu in Manila last October. So ladies, here are some of the highlights of the House hearing. Dismissed Master Sergeant Rodolfo Mayo repeatedly invoked his right to remain silent when asked by lawmakers about the around 6.7 billion pesos of shabu seized from a lending firm he allegedly owned.
And when asked by lawmakers about his vehicle or if he had money to pay his lawyer, he again invoked his right to remain silent. When asked what he was charged with, Mayo says it's moro-moro. Moro-moro means the case is a farce or farcical, but he failed to elaborate and then he once again invoked his right to remain silent. Let's listen to this.
Pakiulit mo nga, ano yung kinaso sa'yo, ano?
Umurong-murong na kaso, Your Honor.
Kasi gusto lang nating malaman sana kung ano yung ikinaso sa'yo eh. Yun lang naman. Di ba? Ano yung kinakarap mong kaso?
I apologize, Your Honor, but I invoke my right to remain silent.
Other PNP personnel who faced lawmakers were also accused of lying and pointing fingers. The team leader of the anti-drug operation, Police Lieutenant Jonathan Sosonko, denies being Mayo's arresting officer. He says they arrived at Mayo's lending company at 4:45 p.m., but the statement of his boss, Police Colonel Julian Olonan, says Sosonko called him about the buy bus at 1 p.m. that day. Dangerous Drugs Committee Chairman Ace Barbers also showed a screenshot of the CCTV footage from the buy bus, showing Sosonko together with a handcuffed Mayo at 1:39 p.m. at the WPD lending office. This is how that exchange went.
Isa sa inyo nagsisinungaling eh. Diba? Sabi ng boss mo, nagkaroon ng arrest sa bangbang. Sabi mo naman, inaresto mo yung atadero doon sa WPD lending.
That was the report of Lieutenant Sosonko. I received from him through telephone call, Your Honor.
Oh, you see? Galing sa'yo. Binobola mo yung boss mo.
No, Your Honor.
Sino nagsasabi sa inyo ng totoo? We're already seen in front of the WPD lending office at 1:21 p.m. So, sino yun? Hindi ikaw yun.
No, Your Honor.
Mahirapan ka dito. Lieutenant Susongko, mas magandang nasabi ko sa'yo kasi mahirap magsinungaling.
Still to come, it's not just ID cards. The LTO is also forecasting a shortage in license plates by June. The details when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're still watching the big story here on One News.
The Land Transportation Office has its hands full even more. Now, it's not just plastic license cards. The agency says license plates could also see a shortage. The LTO says license plates for motorcycles could run out by June, while those for vehicles could be used up by July. Same as with the license cards, the agency says procurement efforts stalled as they await the go signal of the Transportation Department. The LTO said it's looking into possibly allowing motorcycle and vehicle owners to temporarily issue their own license plates for the time being.
So kagaya po ng plastic cards po na ginagamit po natin sa mga driver's licenses, yung nangangasiwa po sa procurement or sa pagbili po ng mga plaka ay DOTR rin po.
And before we go, dogs aren't just a man's or woman's best friend, but they can also be our heroes. Meet this 4-month-old Belgian Malinois puppy named Princess. The house of Princess's owner in Barangay Kalumpang, General Santos City caught fire at around 2 a.m. on April 20. Members of the family, including Princess, woke up with their house already on fire, at which point instinct took over and everyone ran out. Princess, however, would not stop barking at her owner. And when she finally caught her owner's attention, Princess immediately ran back inside the burning house. The owner then followed Princess back inside, and there, they found her 5-year-old daughter still fast asleep. They were able to bring the child out, and fortunately, no one died in the incident. But the following day, Princess had to be brought to the vet clinic after incurring third-degree burns on her face, both of her ears, and all 4 paws. The 4-month-old fur hero is recovering from her injuries.
Dun sa pagpasok niya, nasunog po yung face niya, including both ears at saka 4 na paa, no? So, sunog na sunog po yung pads niya. So, wala pong natira, no? Lahat po is nasunog. Sinasabihan na lang po namin siya na tiis-tiis lang, Princess, gaganda ka rin, no? So, babalik rin yung balat mo.
And that's it for tonight's show.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you and good night.